So yeah, I will start from introduce my major research topic. I majored in architecture, and my major research topic actually is about wooden granaries of South China, about their building crafts, and it is determining factors. And during my investigation around the Sichuan province, I find a very special type of building existing in Gyarong region. So it is a very special valley in Gyarong region, Japhug Valley. I think I don't know whether I pronounce it right. And this is a border area between Amdo area and the Gyarong area. Gyarong is a kind of Tibetan agricultural region of Sichuan, and Amdo, they are a kind of pastoral region of Sichuan, of Tibetan area in the past. So this is also a kind of junction of two different cultures. Meanwhile, there was a very important trade road across this region from the agricultural region to the pastoral region before 1950s. So actually, before this region, in the past, they are quite unsafe society area in the past. Okay, then I would like to say this region, this is a very called Japhug. The main area there is a river called Japhug River, and the area here they speak a special language called Japhug language, which I learned from a very wonderful book. This dictionary Japhug, Chinese, and French. I'm sorry, I cannot read French, so I had to read it in Chinese. And this region is a very high altitude region compared to Danba. The region is, the settlement of this region are at an altitude between 2,750 to 3,500 meters higher than Danba area. And another special thing is due to the local river. It's a very big river, and it is very typology. This region is much humidity than the surrounding Tibetan regions. So this is the dictionary we already quite familiar with. And this is the attitude of their this region. And this drawing is from a very nice book about Sichuan Tibetan Gyarong, and it describes the settlements of Danba area. But our study area, the Japhug area, is higher than Danba. And from this, we can see the topography of this region with very steep. And we can see some very impressive, very high stone buildings in the villages. This is Derba village, one settlement of Japhug region. And we can see that even closer, you see their overhanging drying racks. The 8 high stories Gyarong is one of the oldest buildings in Sar region, which was said to have been built in around the Middle Qing dynasty. So it's around the middle 18th century, I think. And the Gyarong has its own name, rHkha house, as other Tibetan Gyarong's of Gyarong region built into Tzu period. There are diverse of Gyarong forms in Sichuan Tibetan area, but tower Gyarongs of this region is the tallest type. And for me, is also the most impressive and the most complicated one. We can see these two pictures. The left one is the tower Gyarongs of this region, and the right one is a typical tower in Gyarong region. This is from Sopo, a famous village. And we can see they lose similarity, but the different thing is local people need to live inside these tower Gyarongs, and even with their family, even with their agriculture, harvester, and their animals. Here, I would like to start from a village of this region located in a valley basin at the altitude of 2,700 meters. And we can see from this layout of the villages, the red part we can see is the Gyarong, and the yellow one, the very tiny yellow one on one river is the water mill, is a public water mill for the whole villages. And also in the middle of this photo, we can see another shining yellow square. It is the pagoda. Also, it belongs to these villages. The villages consist of only 7 families. The scales of Tibetan villages of this region are generally much smaller than Han villages. And each family owns their own tower Gyarongs and their own fields, quite connect to their Gyarongs. The layout of the villages is closely related to their living style and the social background. And the 7 tower Gyarongs close gathering together at the junction of 2 rivers. We see from this drawing is a layout of a nearby village next to the last one. And is also a kind of typical village of Japhug Valley. And we can see each tower Gyarongs owns their own fields, and their fields owns quite clear boundary, which built by fence or short stone walls. And the some Gyarongs you can see also their own small vegetable gardens, and enclosed by low stone walls. And we can see the photo of a local villages, and we can see how they're gathering together like a very defensive, strong fort. And such kind of village layout improve the defensive ability of this village. Then let's come to the Gyarong. Usually, a tower dwelling of this region is always a high, strong, and enclosed fort with very few openings on its surface. Due to the unsafe society background during Tusi period, locals had to build their house under defensive consideration is their main consideration for building. But they also need to live inside. So actually there are three main functions need to be taken into account when building such kind of dwelling. They should consider living inside, and they should consider how to organize their agriculture produce inside, and also for their animals, sorry. And so local farmers were inclined to integrate their time-consuming highland berry harvest activities and the granaries into their own small fort, so to protect their harvest from the strangers and the rainy season. This kind of tower dwellings can be seen as a vertical farm. Then we can see here there is 5 floors plans, and we can see how difficult they try to integrate those things together, because such kind of requirements raise some problems for the construction. For the defensive consideration, they need to build high buildings with very heavy walls. The walls were around 1 meter wide. We can see from this plan, the black line was very heavy, and the indoor space become very narrow and very dark. But for the harvest process of highland berry, they need good ventilation condition. They need to be in an open air, and they need to be in a dry air. So all of these requirements from the agriculture conflict with these narrow and enclosed interior plans determined by defensive requirements. Another building. So this is the main case study I did in my dissertation. Is a kind of typical tower dwelling, also one of the most famous one in this region. It's called rHkha building. rHkha is the building's name. So the following part will show how local builders did all their effort to organize space for searching a balance between defense and their life. We start from the ground floor. And from the ground floor, I think from the right side, you can see the photo is the owner of these dwellings open the door, main door for me. And from the middle, we can see the ground floor of this tower dwelling. There used to be a low stone wall surrounding the basement and enclosing a private garden for the vegetable and the animals. The main entrance of this building is open to the east part, facing their highland berry field. The inner space of the ground floor is divided into 2 equal areas, and the one room was applied for keeping animals inside in the cold winter time. And the second floor is mainly used for storing hay for the animals, and there are also a very small tool rooms enclosed by a wooden wall at the end of the west area for storing agricultural tools and the carpentry tools inside. You can see in the middle images. And the third floor is the main or the most important space of the whole Gyarong. Is the living space of this building. It's called kitchen in Tibetan, and also I show the name, the Japhug term of this room, but I did not know how to pronounce it. And this space, it is a kind of multi-function space. It can apply for cooking, dinner, and the meeting, and also the decoration of this room is quite nice. You can see inside they will keep a lot of, for them is the most precious thing inside this room. And in the middle of this room will be a old open fire space on the center. And also behind this main room, there is a small room in the east area connected to this kitchen room. It's a kind of storeroom for storing zangba wine and other precious foods. It's behind the ladder you can see from the middle images. And the first floor is again a hay storage. The hay in this area are most straws of highland berry. So they were stored here after the thrashing process on the topmost of this building. And on the right side, you can see a beam through the wall, and it is for supporting the up structure. And the fifth story is applied also for hay storage and the food storage. And from this floor, there are overhanging verandas built outside. And this kind of space are used for drying highland berry in harvest season. And in some other seasons, they can be used for drying radishes and beans. And it can also be used for storing straws in some cases. So I picked some part from the dictionary. The overhanging verandas is with drying rents. So we have to describe this a very long time in English because we did not get an equal word in English. And this kind of structure is one most important characters of local tower dwellings. We can also find this in some surrounding mountainous areas. And this is also one important working space for locals. They also built their toilet in this place. And the layout of the cantilevered verandas is the result of adapting the local environment factors. So this kind of topmost area has the best ventilation of this building, and it is the ideal place for hanging their harvest in here. And also it is support ventilation of the whole buildings. Outside the harvest period, white birch stick will be woven outside the overhanging verandas and to form enclosed surface to prevent cold wind into the building. And we can also see how they was used inside. And the indoor space of the sixth floor is one most complicated one. It is divided into two different function space, bedroom and the granaries. So the right part is two bedrooms, and the left part are two wooden log construction granaries. And so there is also one short corridor between these two granaries, which can be used as a temporary storage place. And we can find from these two stories that we can see, instead of stone walls in these two stories, they began to use wooden pillars and beams as interior supports. And this kind of wooden supports can help to create a more open space to improve the condition of working indoors. And it can also be based on the requirement of reducing the building load and the difficulty of construction. Here we come to the topmost floor. This floor consists of two main functions. One is worship space and one is for harvest working space. The front terrace occupies nearly the half area of this plan. So the terrace receives most and the longest sunshine, which also important for the dwellings. Due to its primary function and the environmental factors, the orientation of this terrace is also rather important. Terraces of most local tower dwellings were designed to face south or east to accept as long sunshine as much. And the big room of the topmost story is named Lecture Hall, Jingtang. It is mainly for worship, and it is the most shared space in the dwellings. Only monks and their family members are around to enter this space. But, however, this shared space can be also used as a temporary storage for highland berry during the harvest period, especially in the rainy season. The threshing work usually will last several days, and when they cannot finish it in one day, they will put their highland berry inside the lecture hall. And there is also a wide porch in front of this room, supported by extended beams. And this space is one of the most convenient place for local women in the past when they did their house workers during the daytime, because it's the most warm and lighting space. This is where Yunfang, Shuya, and I visited last year. I think you already can remember this place, and we can see the pretty girl inside. And in some regions, like Shiyue, the topmost part would be also like this. Local people enlarge the similar outdoor space and maybe for more drying product. Then after land, we can know that by different main functions of each floor, these bearings can generally be divided into 4 sections on the vertical direction. The lower part is for the livestock, for the animal, and the middle part is for the daily life, for the human, and the upper part for me is for the agricultural worker and the worship space. And sometimes there will be some bedrooms on the top space. When we see other plans from this region, here I list 4 different bearings of this region. We can see very similar vertical organization. The functional organization here are quite similar in the vertical directions. They will put their teaching in the middle, usually, and the lower part is always for the animal, and the upper part is always for the agricultural work and their worship space, and also their granaries. And when we connect it to the local language, these are terminologies which I picked from the dictionary, and I find that the functional space in their language are a kind of equal to the floor numbers. I do not know whether it is understanding problem or they really fix them together. So for me, like the term of the second floor is always connected to the kitchen, and the term of fourth floor is fixed to the bedroom. So we can find that there are a kind of regulation of organization in their mind about their house, how it should be. And then we will say more about the harvest. Highland berry in this region is the main traditional set for the local
Sorry? The sound is not the best in the world. Could you, your voice, we cannot hear you clearly.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
It's better now.
It's better, so I put it close to me.
Okay.
Okay. Here I would like to explain the Highland berry can grow quite well in the high altitude area. You can see it can grow in high mountainous areas, like this photo show. And in Japhug region, the harvest period of Highland berry is from middle of September to the end of September. So in this area is also the end of their rainy season. So there is always rain in this area, in this period. The harvest process of Highland berry in Gyarong region can be structured into the following steps: the wrapping, the transportation, the drying lasts 10 to 20 days or even 1 month more, and the thrashing and the winnowing. And in Japhug berry, most of the steps they finish it in their house. So this is most due to the local humidity river and the unsafe social condition in the past. And usually they will use short handle stick for seekers for harvesting and tie the structures into bundles afterwards. Generally, this kind of transportation work was women's duty in the past. So we can see, I use this drawing to show how harvester process they integrate into this into their developments. And we started from old woman and put the transport her harvest into her house. They were used ladders to drive up down through the whole house, and it is a kind of difficult work when you carry a heavy things on your back. Most of the opening of this staircase you can find on the drawing, or also when you visit this area, you will find it also. Most of opening for this staircase are much bigger than necessary size to around one person to pass it by. But it is just for people to carry their harvest through these openings. So usually the openings dimension will be 2 meters, around 1.5 meters to even more than 2 meters for people to carry things up and down. But sometimes locals will also build a temporary outdoor shortcut to avoid the difficulty for carrying highland berries through the narrow and dark interior space. And they will put long wooden planks connecting to the end of the lowest veranda and the ground floor as an inclined gangway. And this fresh harvest highland berry needs to be hung on drying racks for 10 to 20 days. In drier seasons, drying racks in other seasons, drying racks can be used for other vegetables and other beans. And when highland berry is dry, then the threshing process will be carried out in a flat place. And this process usually happens on the topmost of tower dwellings, the terrace. And the first ears of highland berry are separate from the stalk and placed in the center of the flat place, and 2 or more farmers thrashing them with long wooden feathers. You can see from the next photos, old mama and put these tools for thrashing. And for winnowing, they want to separate the grain and the outers of the grain. And they will rely on the natural wind in this region. And firstly, they collect the mixture of grain and the chaff into a kind of flat basket, and then throw the mixture into the air to let the wind blow away the lighter part, and then the clean grain will be left in the bigger flat basket. And this process will be repeated and repeated until everything were done. And during those processes, one construction should be done before those two processes were taken. Is a special kind of wooden platters should be installed surrounding the terrace to form a pool-like area to prevent the grain jump outside the floor. So it's very, and also we can find that there is a special terminology for this kind of wooden platters. And you can only find them in the harvest season. In the other season, people will take them off. And after all this process, the train grain will be taken and stored in their wooden granaries. Highland berry can still be eaten even after have been stored for many years. And the form of these wooden granaries are quite similar and quite ancient. They are log construction granaries. They are generally square with the side lengths around 2.5 meters, and their heights are around 2 meters. And inside such kind of wooden granaries, several pieces of thick wooden boulders divided indoor space into different clusters and a different height, and for different kind of grain and different years of grain. And we can find such kind of log construction in other Tibetan area. This kind of log construction was regarded as the ideal construction method for cereal storage in Tibetan region. So because it can very strong, and so according to the earthquake street in the Tibetan area, and also the unsafe society, social factors of this region, log granaries will be the most stable construction for grain. We can also find historical images of log granaries. This is in Yunnan from Han Dynasty, so around 2,000 years ago. And from the also from the dictionary, I found one term. I could not read it. Maybe you will know how to pronounce this term. And this term, from the description, it says it is describe the amount of the grain, but it is also a kind of term for me to describe the building space. So for me, it seems like local also use part of the building space to describe the amount of their harvest. It's a kind of connection between building space and the harvest. Now let's come to the part that how people build such kind of building. And many local tower dwellings are built with quite mixture structure. It's mixed the wood stone structure. So the study of rHkha house shows that there are around 4 types of structure used in a typical tower dwellings. In the lower part is load-bearing stone structure, and upper a little bit. In the middle part is load-bearing stone structure mixed with inner wooden posters, and the higher part is cantilevered wooden structure and the load structure. So installing such kind of different wooden structure into stone structures can reduce the building's load and also enlarge the indoor space, but also it can increase the complete of the building process. In the past, the building process of tower dwellings in Japhug area usually lasts for several years. And one house, the house owner will invite at least one experienced masters to guide and lead the whole construction process. And this masters usually is a mason master. And the master and his group were mainly responsible for the main body of the buildings, but the wooden part was belonged to the experienced carpenters. They were invited to build cantilevered verandas, the wooden granaries, the windows, and some important interior finishes. And here we can see these two kinds of workers. The left is the carpenters, and the right is the mason. And we start from the foundation. The foundation usually is a prior very narrow square plans, and it will dig into the ground to form the basement. Usually the depth of this basement will from 1 meters. And to build such kind of high buildings, a scaffolder is a must. So when building start, and usually the scaffolders are erected inside the surrounding wall instead of outer wall. And the first layer of scaffolders is only 1.5 meters high when building the walls of the ground floor. With such kind of low height, women who are responsible for carrying mud and loads can easily transport them to workers who standing on the scaffolders that they can build the walls higher and higher. And when the wall rises to around 3 meters during the construction process, workers began to do floor framings for the second floor. And then they can take apart the lower scaffolders and use the floor framings for the first of the second floor as a working platform. And they will reuse the scaffolding again on the second floor and build the third floor's frame and then take apart again. So actually they use very short scaffolders and reuse again and again until reach to the height they need. So after the determined height, they need to prepare for the overhanging verandas. They will first left some holes for installing cantilevered beams. And then carpenters will join the work from this time. They will come to install beams into these reserved holes. And these beams those beams are quite important and usually made from a very special wood, local said qingzhangmu in this region, a very strong and hard wood. And then a group of short posters of the veranda and several horizontal drying racks are assembled together to form a plan frames. And the carpenters then will erect these prepared frames at the outer edges of the veranda, and they will put a small beam on the top of the outside enders of these cantilevered beams. And then the posters can carry the upper part. The posters carry the drying potters were folded at their lower enders and then fixed on the wall paneled beams beneath. And this is quite dangerous and scary for workers. So usually should be taken by a group of carpenters, not for the mansions as before. And after this stamp, carpenters will directly lay a series of upper beams, which are also supporting beams of the upper verandas on the pillars of these drying racks. Loaders of these upper beams helps these drying racks can keep stables in their place. And then usually these two log construction should be done before the construction and on the ground floor, because it needs a flat place and a big place to build such kind of complicated log construction. And then after they done these log granaries on the ground floor, they will take it apart and then transfer the pieces of the log granaries up on the top of the buildings, and then assemble these components again to be granaries on the floor of the story again. And then the final step of the construction project is flooring. The floors of the dwellings are traditionally combined by several layers. There will be wooden stage. Above it will be stone slabs or wooden planters, and the land leaves and the land rend earth. And it was usually carried out by a group of women from this village or even neighboring villages in the past. This kind of tradition, I know it is still lasted in Tibetan area and the surrounding Lhasa area. I heard still they have such kind of tradition. And then they carry earth to cover each floor frame and rend land into rend earth floor surface. It's also can be seen as a kind of festival because all women come and they will sing and dance together above such kind of rend earth floor. And so after all this thing, after the whole floor was covered on this building, and the all components of this building become stable because of the weight of the floor. So, okay, so it's the finish of this kind of construction. And here I would like to say that from the dictionary of Japhug area, and I find that there are a kind of quite various of terms used for describing wooden elements of overhanging verandas. I mean, each building elements got their names and much more than other part of the building. We will think why each small pieces of elements got its name in this space. And I will suppose this can relate to the group working requirements during such kind of difficult construction process for the overhanging verandas. And because people need to work together and they need to transfer and assemble the elements in steps. So the name of these elements become necessary because they need to work together and they need to transfer different kind of elements. And it should not be wrong because it is a quite difficult difficulty and quite unsafe water in a very high space. But in the nearly, I think it's already nearly 70 years in this region, there's no more such kind of building was built in this way again. And we can see some of them were already demolished. All people built new dwellings, new short dwellings just behind the older one. And they will use the old and the tall buildings only for storage or only for drying their harvest. And we can see the difference between the new in front and the older in the background. But we cannot do anything. We can only to record and to record as much as we can and to hope the local people can have a much happy future afterwards. And in the end, I would like to express my appreciation to the dictionary and the idea, the story in it helps me to get better understanding on the building of this region and help me to know how excellent work local people did in the past. So it's the end, and thank you very much for hearing, and also for I'm very sorry again for my poor